Hey everyone, how are you? And glad to be back. Let's talk a little bit about that Club World Cup. A story of a tournament that didn't have a great deal of hype and hoopla, if you will. Yeah, one of the main stories, of course, was Bayern Munich. And everyone knew that it was maybe not a foregone conclusion, but it was a huge possibility that they were going to win, which they ended up doing, which they ended up getting the sextuple, which they ended up equaling Pep Guardiola's team back in 2009 to become the only team to have won 6 titles in one season. So, of course, kudos to them. We knew that was going to happen, but the way that it happened, it was a team that, for the most part, didn't get out of second gear, didn't get out, maybe at times went into third, if that. So let's keep that in mind when we're talking about this Bayern Munich side, a team that, what was it, maybe a year or so, well, more than a year now, when Hansi Flick took over, that it was in a bit of duress, that it found itself not knowing heads from tails, having a lot of confusion, and for the most part, Hansi Flick coming in and being able to right the ship the way he did, which was in and of itself supremely impressive. And we knew that Bayern could do what they ended up doing and what they have been doing so far in this past year and change. The big stories, though, ended up not being Bayern, at least in my assertion. You look at Ahly, a team that fought until the bitter end against Bayern, a team that is arguably the best team in Africa, that has the best coach in African football, Pitso Mesamani, and what ends up being a possibility for a team to show off some of these talents that could end up being looked at in Europe, that could end up raising some eyebrows. Maybe they didn't do it entirely, but that is not something to take away from them. They did a great job with what they had. It was interesting to hear that Hansi Flick sat down with Pitso Mosimane and said, you know what, I like the way that he thinks about football. And it maybe, just maybe, this could be the opportunity for Mosimane to be able to get the opportunity to coach in Europe. I hope he does. I think that he has what it takes to be, I don't know if one of the biggest clubs in the world, but he could coach in Europe. He does have that type of football mind that he could be able to do it. Now, of course, there's other issues that one would have to look at as far as extracurricularly outside of football that could prevent him from not getting a chance in that part of the world. But the big story was Tigres, in my opinion. Tigres, because of what they were able to do against Palmeiras, how they dominated Palmeiras, how they controlled Palmeiras, how they regulated that match, and left a team that went from being, I don't know if world beaters are the right word. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But they were a team that they controlled, that did very well in a certain stage, but they were still able to muster up results to end up winning the Copa Libertadores. I, for one, was guilty of saying, hey man, they've improved under Vanderlei. Actually, after Vanderlei Luxemburgo was sacked and Abel Ferreira started to maybe get a better impression and start to establish an imprint in style of play. But that was up to quarterfinals. Semifinals, you saw a more pragmatic side that dropped back, that defended. They got, I don't know about lucky, but they did end up catching breaks and taking advantage of them. They ended up having a team in River that committed a lot of mistakes and took advantage of them. And why not? Getting a 3-0 advantage. They almost lost that advantage. And if that Montiel goal by River ends up being allowed, I don't know how Palmeiras would have been able to hold on after that. Now, that being said, they were a team that ended up losing their direction. And if it weren't for a wonderful cross by Ronnie and a brilliant header by Breno, they would have not been here. I don't think they showed enough merit based on how they played in this tournament and in their last 2 Libertadores matches to say that they had established the arguments to be able to say, hey, you know what? They deserve to be here. They didn't. River, maybe even Boca to a certain extent, could be kicking themselves. And I say at Boca because if they would have shown some attitude against Santos, that would have been a different story. And I think River or Boca would have been able to beat this Palmeiras side. I'll leave that there. Now, Tigres. Tigres comes. They're the team that makes history as well, as they become the first team in CONCACAF history to get to a final in this tournament. Oh, may I add, before I make the transition, also Palmeiras was the worst team to have ever participated in a Club World Cup. Tigres, as I mentioned, they're the team that ends up making the final for the first time in history for a CONCACAF side. Tuca Ferretti showed a team that was combative, but also was very organized, which has been one of the staples throughout his career. Against Palmeiras, they looked brave, they looked inspired, they looked like they were the team that wasn't going to knock Palmeiras out, but they were going to slowly choke Palmeiras out. Kind of ironic, knowing what Felipe Melo's into and what a disgusting human being he is, and what a horrid individual he is. And I had to use that term for him and his team as well. But it was mostly for Felipe Melo. The rest of the team I have no problem with. But Tigres, with André Pierre Gignac just being one of the best players of the tournament, and a team that looked inspired against Palmeiras, was not that against Bayern. They looked a bit of deer in headlights. They looked scared. They looked like the things that they needed to get done weren't getting done, and never got done, and could never get done, because they just seemed overwhelmed by the moment of the fact that they were playing Bayern Munich. They ended up not performing up to par. Reyes, Aquino, Dueñas, I'm just talking off the top of my head. Their performances were putrid. They were just bad. And they just were never able to rectify. Tuca Ferretti, I don't know what he was thinking, because he didn't bring in subs. What happened to Leo Fernandez? What happened to Niente Lopez? We've heard a bunch of things about him, but there should have been more. There needed to be more, and there wasn't. And Tuca Ferretti did not take advantage of it. And again, that's very unfortunate, because this team deserved more. They deserved to do more, and it seemed like there was a bit of an empty feeling at the end of the day when this team ended up walking away from Qatar in second place. I'm not saying that they were going to win. I just expected the match to be more competitive than it was. That being said, Gignac and maybe even Nahuel Guzman did show up and did save face and did represent the best way possible. So again, credit to them, as they were able to do it. More Gignac than Nahuel Guzman. And of course, VAR. For those of you, hold on, let me take a quick swig. For those of you that don't follow South American football, those of you from North America and Europe and other parts of the world, Julio Bascuñán had already been demoted. Okay, Julio Bascuñán was the VAR referee in the match between Bayern and Tigres. He had already had problems this year as a referee. Just ask the Peruvians in World Cup qualifying play. And not even this year, just a few months ago in World Cup qualifying play in South America. So keep that in mind when you're analyzing this match and the VAR failure that was that goal. Now, the first one, completely fine, and it was disallowed properly. But this one was allowed despite the Robert Lewandowski handball. And nobody saw it. And they didn't look into it. And they didn't back up enough to see that handball, which would have been disallowed. Now, I'm not saying that changed the match, because the way Bayern were playing, if it didn't happen then, it could have happened later. The goal I'm talking about. So always keep that in mind when it comes to that particular play. But again, it was embarrassing as far as VAR was concerned. Tigres could have done more. Bayern didn't need to do enough. They did the bare minimum, and it was just enough. More than enough. It was kind of like, the runner that all they have to do is just jog to get to the finish line, and they're able to beat whatever opponents are there as they are going in a full sprint. That would have been the story. And that's, again, how this Club World Cup played out. Just showed how much better Bayern is, how much better European football is at the club level than the rest of the world. And there's reasons for that, but of course, the obvious ones are on the pitch and the quality of the team and a reassertion of Bayern Munich being the best team in the world and doing it in a historic fashion. All right, well, that all said, I just want to thank you all for checking this out. And of course, now it changes in terms of the scheduling and the delivery of these podcasts. They'll probably be a little bit briefer. They'll probably be a little bit shorter. Sometimes they'll be a little bit longer, depending on the necessity. But what's most important is that we'll be talking more about Copa Libertadores as it starts again in the next few days. I'll give you kind of a weekly update or a daily update if need be on that tournament. We'll also talk about Champions League. We'll also talk about maybe some Liga MX and whatever goes on. There's some interesting projects that are on the road, down the pipeline. I'll announce them here. Okay, so make sure that you are tuned in. I'll make those announcements in the next few weeks. And again, I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. If you have any questions, please send them. And if you have any inquiries, please send them, because I will be very happy to answer those questions. If I feel inspired, just jump on, answer the question real quick, put it up. But we'll have something on at least once a week. If I feel inspired, I'll just jump on and do something daily. But you will have one thing at least once a week from here on out. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Ciao.